Hey everybody, and welcome to the 44th episode of the Foundation First Fitness Show with Bob Acko. And today is the second episode of this week. I've kind of hit this nice pace that I think I'm going to be able to maintain throughout the rest of the year, hopefully into 2019. And essentially what we're going to be discussing today kind of ties into what we discussed last week, which was workout schedule for runners. And we did discuss something probably a couple of months back actually, where we discussed how to train as a runner. But I really wanted to almost discuss what you should be doing on a practical term, in the practical terms. So what I mean is, what could you be doing on a daily basis to train your core? I did mention what your workout should look like. So in terms of developing the core, injury prevention, making sure that making sure that you're doing the right workouts and warm-ups and all that stuff. But I think a lot of individuals wanted to know kind of some specifics, maybe throw a quick workout out there for you to do so that you can actually start running and getting some benefits out of these workouts and seeing that kind of progression as you run. Now, this kind of workout doesn't just hold true for runners, but it's going to be very well tied into them because it's something that they're very much going to need as runners to be able to, or you're going to need as runners to be able to actually benefit from that core workout. So the first thing I would tell you is that a proper core workout is not just going to be crunches. Crunches don't really do all that much for you if you're not doing them properly, which most people aren't. So you want to be able to understand how to stabilize the pelvis, stabilize the core, get deep core musculature to maintain a nice neutral spine, and from there, create movement. That's usually where the biggest issue is coming from with the average individual, is an inability to make sure that the pelvis, the ribs don't start moving around and trying to make up for that lack of movement at another joint. So what will usually happen, which is why a lot of individuals, a lot of runners, you runners may notice this as well, back pain, knee pain. A lot of that is coming from an inability to properly move that hip. Now, if the hip's not moving, a lot of that could be coming from two things: the foot and the core. If you're not able to activate the core properly to stabilize the pelvis and keep that nice neutral spine, your body is going to go looking elsewhere to create movement at the hip, because the hip won't want to move because it has nothing to kind of keep it stable while it's trying to move up and down and basically help you propel forward. So the first exercise I would tell you to do is a dead bug. Now, before you start sitting there going like, whoa, where's my pen? I don't know. What is that? Guys, I will put a link up so you guys can click on that in the description. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, it's in the description. If you're listening to this on the podcast, it will be in the description. There will be a link that you can click to that you'll be able to go and essentially download this entire workout. So each and every exercise, sets and reps, so that you'll know exactly what you need to do. Now, this entire workout is going to be based on a couple of things. It's going to be based on maintaining a nice neutral spine, moving your legs around, picking up your body from the side, from different angles, and basically it's going to be very quick and easy. It's not going to be very complicated, but this is going to allow you to kind of start with something, build some kind of foundation in your core if that is your biggest weakness, and progress forward. So the first exercise is going to be a dead bug, which is essentially you lying on your back, and it's going to be a little modified. What we're going to do is we're going to use your foam roller, which is about 12 to 14 inches long, depending on which one you have. You're going to use that and pin it between your hand and the opposite leg. So between left hand and right knee. You're going to see this in the picture, so don't worry. If you pin that, while you're pinning that there, what that's going to do is that's going to allow you to recruit your upper body to help bring your ribs down, to get your pelvis to a nice neutral position, and allow you to actually contract your core. And by doing that, you're going to be able to pin those two areas of your body. So your hand, right leg in the same place. And then from there, you're going to be dropping your opposite hand, so your right hand and your left leg down to touch the ground, bring them back together. So you're going to be repeating that about 12 times, swapping to go to the other side, 12 on the other side. Doing this 2 to 3 times is going to be just enough to kind of get a good understanding of how to stabilize the pelvis and move the legs. The key component with this exercise is to make sure that your back, that neutral spine, doesn't change. You're not trying to press your back into the ground. You're trying to get your back to kind of sit a little bit closer to the ground than it regularly is, because what's happening is that we generally end up arching at the back. This is not true for everyone, but for the grand majority of you, you'll notice that if you're lying on your back, your back is going to be pretty severely arched. I should not be able to slide my hand directly underneath, but I should not also not be able to remove my hand because you're crushing it so hard when you're trying to bring your back flat to the ground. Because if you're flattening out your back, you're actually taking away from that natural curve, and we need that natural curve because that's where your spine wants to be. The important thing about a joint is that the joint has to actually sit in a nice, happy medium. Every joint has extremes. It has one extreme that it can go to, and it has the complete opposite extreme it can go to. Now, if you sit too far to one side, either side, what's going to happen is you're limiting your body's ability to move in with that joint. So let's take a hip. If you can't flex your hip properly, or you can't extend your hip properly, that means if you can't bring your knee up or kick your leg back to a certain comfort level in a certain degree, then what that means is that you're either shifted to one side or the other, or you might not have ability to go very far at all. So you want to be able to create a nice amount of mobility in that joint and in that movement. You want to create some range of motion in that movement, so that what you can do is you can understand how to train in that movement, in that range. So you'll have a nice wide range of being able to actively move that body or move that limb. And then you want to be able to sit in the middle of that, which is why I'm saying, yes, I know that you can arch your back and you can definitely tuck your spine right in, but you arching your back and tucking your spine right in should just be an ability and not a position to start moving from. So get that neutral spine, which is going to be the same position in every single exercise. That's why I'm starting with the dead bug. It's the easiest one to get your body into that nice neutral spine position. From there, you're going to start moving your legs and moving your arms. The next exercise is going to be a bridge. Now, a hip bridge. So basically, a lot of you are like, isn't a hip bridge a glute and hamstring exercise? Yes, it is. But those are two major muscles, especially the hamstrings, that are stabilizing the pelvis and that are actually going to stop you from falling into a bad position when you're running. So you want to be able to maintain a nice core position while actively getting these hamstrings to fire properly and create hip extension. The second thing it's going to do is it's doing something, I'm going to get a little technical on you. It's called reciprocal inhibition. Reciprocal inhibition means that if I contract my glutes and contract my hamstrings, my quad's going to release. It's the most fundamental thing in working out. It's, if you go back and watch one of my Instagram posts that I can't remember when I did it, but it was earlier this year, obviously because I didn't post anything in 2017, but it was earlier this year, and essentially I was discussing how to release a tight hip by using reciprocal inhibition. So basically, trying to contract your glutes and your hamstring is going to allow you to get a little bit more range out of the front of the leg and out of the front of the hip. So it's going to allow you to be able to get some much needed movement, especially when we spend a lot of our time sitting before we go out and we do these runs. So getting a nice bridge is going to be a great exercise to do. If it's too easy for you, get it to a single leg bridge, which I will post as a modification to that, a progression to that basic exercise. So right now we've got dead bug, then bridge. Bridge we're going to do for about 3 sets of 12. Should be more than enough, with a nice 2-second hold at the top, contracting the glute, contracting the hamstring, and making sure that our body's firing properly. You will notice that I will put a foam roller between the leg. The reason I do that is that a lot of individuals, when on their back and asked to hip extend, their knees flare out. So if your knees don't flare and you're able to keep it steady in the center, go for it. If not, put a little foam roller in the middle. You're not trying to break the foam roller by pressing in. You're just applying a little bit of pressure to help guide you in a straight line. Third exercise, I want to get some lateral control. So what I want to do is I want to get a nice side plank. So the side plank is a great exercise, but just like the plank, it is not an exercise that you want to do for more than a minute. Anything you do more than a minute is simply too easy. You need to progress. If you can do a plank for a minute, if you can do a side plank for a minute, it's way too easy. It's way too easy of an exercise. If you're not getting anything more from it, move on. Plain and simple. Which is why I'm saying, if you're doing the side plank, get yourself in a nice side plank position. You're going to notice that I'm staggering my legs. The reason I'm staggering my legs is because I want that hip extension to happen, because I want you to think driving from the hip and then not just lifting your hip up off the ground. Because if you lift your hip up off the ground, you're actually going to be in kind of like a bent position. If you hip extend, you're going to be locking the hip out and then driving your elbow into the ground. That's going to let your shoulders sit in a nice place. That's going to get a nice position for your foot, because that's generally where your legs are going to be, is cross position. And that's going to help you kind of train the lateral portion. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to flip over onto our stomach. We're not going to be in a plank position. I like the plank, but I want to get us into a little bit more of a relaxed, controlled position. The reason why I say that is that a lot of individuals that are running, a lot of individuals that are training don't plank properly. Our body's not in the right position when we're planking. Our back is caving in. When your back caves in on a plank and your head droops down, you've lost that exercise. It's no more good. It's not doing anything for you. The other thing I really want us to do is to take that dead bug position and we're going to flip it. So your dead bug position is you lying on your back, hands straight out in front of you, knees straight out in front of you. We're going to take that, we're going to flip it, and we're going to get into kind of a quadruped position. So basically hands and knees. You're going to line up the hands right under your shoulders. You're going to line up the knees right under your hip. Your hands and your knees should also be in a straight line from top to bottom. And what you're going to do from there is bring your toes up. You're not going to lift them off the ground. You're just going to pull your toes in, and you're going to lift your knee up off the ground by that much. Doing that, maintaining that nice neutral spine, is what I like to call a 6 to 4 point plank. I know some people call it the bear crawl, like a frozen bear position, bear crawl position. I call it a 6 to 4 point plank, because you're going from 6 points of contact to just 4. So maintaining that position for about 30 seconds to 45 seconds is going to be relatively tough enough, because it's going to be that moment where your spine is going to be in a nice neutral position. You'll notice that this is actually pretty tough. And if you try to do a plank right after, you're almost going to notice that your plank got significantly worse, because now if you're understanding that neutral spine position, you're going to realize that it's a lot harder than getting into a plank position and just relying on your structure, like your spine, to kind of hold you up. So those are the 4 exercises I would highly recommend you do. These are exercises you can throw in your warm-up. These are exercises you can do on a daily basis. Obviously, give yourself at least 1 day of rest, but try to do these as often as possible. Frequency is going to be a huge factor in understanding how to properly build the core. So as I mentioned before, if you guys are looking to get your hands on this program, it will be in the description. It'll basically bring you to my webpage, or my company's webpage, Own Performance webpage, which will allow you to download this, the clip, basically the workout for this podcast episode. Give it a shot. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a little comment here. Leave me a thumbs up if you like the episode. Obviously, if you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for, man? Just hit that button right down there. If you guys are listening to this on the podcast, thank you very much for tuning in. Many of you are tuning in week after week, so I love that. Thank you very much for doing that. And until next time, guys, keep building that foundation.